You are listening to Alpha Health and Wellness Radio. I am your host, Dr. Haley Schaff, and my goal is to empower you to become the alpha of your health. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the show. I just want to before I get into everything I'm going to talk about today, I want to just give you an update on some things that I am working on. First of the things is I'm going to be adding a parasite protocol to my membership, which that's something a lot of people ask about. I run people through different gut protocols and parasite protocols and all of that, yeast and all of that fun stuff with people that I work with, but I also get a lot of questions on it, and I am going to be offering that within my membership. So that's something that will probably be coming, I would say by the end of the month. Yeah, probably by the end of the month. I'm also been really busy because next month is October, and October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I think that we are all pretty aware that breast cancer is a thing. So last year, instead of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it was still Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but I really took it upon myself to speak more on prevention and things that we were learning along my mom's journey, because at that point she was diagnosed with stage 4, and unfortunately after October only lived till the end of December. So that for this year, I really want to continue that. I really want to continue that discussion and talk about the lifestyle things and things that we necessarily might not think about. I mean, I've done episodes before, like the one I did with Dr. Lucas. That was amazing. We talked pretty much a lot about lifestyle things that he finds in patients, whether it's he's testing their glyphosate levels or their heavy metals or lead, cadmium, mercury, all these different things. So if you haven't, make sure you go back and listen to that episode. That's an episode that I'll probably be sharing quite frequently next month. But I also am going to be ordering shirts. And so if you follow me on Instagram, I have probably already placed the order by the time you're listening to this episode. I ordered based on the feedback that I got. I ordered hopefully a good amount. Hopefully everyone can get what they want. But it's a long sleeve pink shirt. It has the breast cancer symbol and then my mom's initials on the front left chest. And then on the back, it has the Alpha Wolf in huge white letters. It looks really cool. And I decided that I'm not doing these shirts. I don't want to make money. I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this to be able to help others. And so 100% of the proceeds are going to go to Believe Big, which is a foundation that I am incredibly thankful for. Believe Big is something that we found kind of late in my mom's journey. Once, I wish we had found it in the beginning, when she was first diagnosed. But what they're doing is, it's education, it's resources, it's referral. We were able to find a referral doctor somewhat locally about an hour and a half from my parents, where my mom could do mistletoe treatment, which mistletoe is also something we talked about with Dr. Lucas. You can go back and learn why that's important. But Dr. Nasha Winters is... she's very big with that foundation, and she's probably one of the best naturopathic doctors I've ever seen in the space of oncology. She had stage 4 ovarian cancer. She literally was sent home to die at the age of 20 something. Her story is incredible, and I don't want to butcher it by not doing it justice. I really am going to try to get her on this podcast, but she's very big within that foundation. She trains a lot of the clinicians and physicians who are on their referral network. And so unlike other cancer societies, like the American Cancer Society that says 60% of your diet can be processed sugar and wheat and all these things that we know continue to further drive disease, I don't feel comfortable supporting something like the American Cancer Society. It's still, I'm not against chemo, radiation. Those things are good, or they can be good for somebody, but that's not helping people really truly understand how we can heal. That might be a tool in someone's journey, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, that should be the end all be all. So anyways, Believe Big is a really great foundation, and 100% of the proceeds that I get from the shirts are going to go there. And so I have some really big goals in terms of how much I'd like to, send to them. And I'm very, very, very excited and very much so looking forward to it. And it's just going to be cool to see everybody wearing the pink with my mom's initials, with the Alpha Wolf on the back, and it just means a lot. And so I'm really excited. I got a lot of good feedback. I hope once I get to the shirts, everyone's still interested, because there was a lot of you guys that were interested, and wanted the shirts and everything, which is awesome. So I ordered a bunch, and they will be on their way soon. And as soon as I have them in, and then I will put them up. And so because I'm kind of like a one-woman show, it will probably take a little bit for me to get the orders packed and everything, but no worries. I'm very excited about it. Anyways, I don't want to ramble, but I do want to give you a heads up that that's coming. So just be on the lookout for that. Today, I really want to talk about something that, actually, no, sorry. I'm all over the place. I wanted to read a review, shout you guys out. This is from Anna. She said, 5 stars, a true goldmine of information. Dr. Healy is one of the most knowledgeable people I have found in the podcast space around holistic health and healing. She covers incredibly important topics, breaks things down in easy to understand terms, while also going deep enough to make those episodes a true goldmine of information. It's crazy how much I've learned from her just from her free content. If you want to better your health, this is a place to start and a community to help get you there. Truly incredible. Thank you so much for that review. Anna, if you wouldn't mind, reach out to me and send me your address. I'd like to send you something, just as a thank you for that review. That was so incredibly nice. So send me your address. You can send it to me on Instagram or drhaleyschroff@gmail.com, and I will happily get something in the mail for you. So thank you so much for all of that. I mean, honestly, all of the reviews, and I want to get back to reading them because I couldn't do this without you guys. The reviews are essentially how, like, the currency of this podcast, and how this podcast can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Shown to other people or recommended to other people. So it helps a great deal. So getting into what today's topic is, I'm trying to think of and compile a lot of questions that I get on Instagram so that I can make episodes kind of going over those little tidbits. And the first one today is natural forms of contraception, because this is something, because I obviously am very outspoken on my thoughts around birth control. This is a question that I get a lot, being like, well, what do you recommend then for protection? You know, if you're not trying to have a kid, like, what if I don't want to have a kid? Like, what do I do? You know, if I'm not trying to get pregnant, you know, what are my options? And so you do have options, and these are options that we're not typically told. And so if you feel that if you are not in the place to have children, if you don't want to have children, period, end of story, like, no questions asked, the choice is 100% yours, whether you want to do birth control, whether you want to do one of these options, 1000%. But I just think it's worth mentioning these alternative options for people that feel like birth control is their only option, or oral contraceptives is their only option. So I did want to talk about this today because it's something that I get a lot of questions about, and it's just so much easier to have things in a podcast form so that I'm not saying things like a million times. So one thing that we aren't really educated on as women is we don't really understand how our cycle works. So we just are freaked out all the time. Like, could we get pregnant at any second? Are we fertile all the time? And I'm here to tell you we're not. So we're really only fertile like 5 days out of the month, 5 to 7 at most days out of the month. So what does that look like? And around that time, that's what you'd call ovulation. And I really dive deep into teaching you about your cycle in my online hormone course. So this is kind of like a short spiel of that. So we have our period. We're not fertile at all around our period. We're not fertile at all a few days after our period. Our body is still kind of like building up that endometrial tissue. We're still kind of making our hormones. Around mid-cycle, typically mid-cycle, is our most fertile window. So if you're not, I recommend tracking your cycle, which you can track your cycle in a free app. You can use the one, I know Apple has one in their health thing. And what's really cool about that too is you can track symptoms. So you can track, and I'll kind of also touch on what those symptoms mean and how they can kind of tell you where you're at. So, there's Flow, there's millions of free period tracker apps. Now, the one thing to realize for those is those are just going to ask you how long your typical cycles are, whether it's 28 days, 30 days. Cycles are from period to period. So cycle isn't your bleed, that's your period. Period to period is typically about, on average, 25 to 35 days. It ranges. Some people are 25, some people are 35, some people fall in between. So if you start tracking in these apps, it's going to ask like what your typical is. If you don't know, that's okay. You can just say 30. You could just, if you have no idea, if you truly have no idea. So that's the first place to start. We need to have some idea, like that's if nothing else, that's what females should be doing. Just having their thing in an app, so at least when when you can look back and see when your periods were, and you can kind of track things that way. Then we can get a little fancier and we can know, okay, well, how do we know we're approaching that fertile window? How do we know that that's happening? Well, there's a few different things that's going to happen physiologically in our body as we are ramping up to release an egg or ovulate. That's what ovulate is. Sometimes you can feel things around your ovaries, whether on the right or left side. You can kind of feel them. Sometimes you can feel like a twinge or a pain, or like, that can kind of let you know that things are working down there. And you wouldn't feel it on both sides. You would feel it on one or the other. I typically, if I feel it, I only feel it on the right side. It's not like a period cramp. It's just like, it's kind of, they're called ovulation pains. They're normal. But that's happening only on ovulation. The few days before leading up to ovulation, you will see a steady rise or a slow rise in your heart rate. So, I don't know, it could go up a half a beat. It's not super significant. It's not like you go from 55 beats to 65. It's very subtle. So, because I track my cycle on my Ava band, I can kind of see. So, for instance, mine went up like 0.1 beat. Your temperature, though, will go up about a half a degree. So your skin temperature will go up. Mine, which went up about a half a degree. It went from, about a half a degree-ish. But as you're entering that fertile window. So that fertile window is kind of when we start to get a little bit more metabolically active. Ovulation is like the most metabolically active our body is, and then afterwards, because we're making more progesterone. So that's kind of when our heart rate starts to go up, our body temperature starts to go up, our breathing rate will start to go up a little bit as well. You will also start to notice cervical mucus, and it should look like an egg white consistency. And so if you notice that around mid-cycle or in your fertile window, you can put that in your app and say, okay, I've noticed cervical mucus. Maybe if you are going to take your skin temperature the good old-fashioned way, which is via oral thermometer, you have to take it first thing in the morning. So you can't just get out of bed and be like, oh, yeah, I've been walking around. Let me just take my temperature now. That's not going to be very accurate. If you are going to take your temperature and then input your temperature in these apps, it has to be like you wake up, you immediately reach over and you grab your thermometer and you take it before you even get up. And then you can input your temperature in this app, and then you can kind of see it to be charted. So you can kind of see your temperature every single day, and you'll see a slight little rise before ovulation. The hard thing with this is sometimes it's hard to sometimes track that fertile window. It's easier to know you've ovulated once that window is gone, because once that window is gone and you've ovulated, your heart rate, your skin temperature, and your breathing rate all will continue to trend upwards until you get your period, and then you see that nice little drop in temp, drop in pulse, drop in breathing rate. And it's so crazy because every time I see that on my Ava, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get my period today if I didn't wake up with it. So it's just clockwork that everything kind of slightly drops off. And that's why, everything is ramping up. Our body is making more progesterone, more metabolic hormone leading up to our period, because we don't know if we're pregnant or not. And that's just, whether we want to be or not, that's just something our body naturally does. And so that's why I'm a really big fan of the skin temperature and breathing rate, because if things ever become off with my period, I just kind of look and I'm like, oh, my trends looked really weird this month. And so I use the Ava band because it's easy. I really like it. I will put a link in the show notes for $30 off the Ava band. That's just what I've used. I've used it probably for over a year and a half now, and I currently use it for birth control. So during the fertile window, I just sustain from sexual activity. That's our personal choice. And that's just the safe choice that we make. Or you could use a barrier method. That's obvious. That's an obvious one. that you can do, and you can do within the fertile window if you're comfortable. But that's a choice, and that's an option that people have, because really outside that fertile window, you're really good to go. But you also want to make sure that you're tracking things for a while so that it kind of gets a sense of your body and you get a sense of your body. But truly, that is how our cycle works. We cannot get pregnant all the time. We can't get pregnant all cycle long. You really only have like those 5 to 7 days of your fertile window. And then once you ovulate, it's done. Because once that egg is released, it's done. There's nothing more that can happen. So, like I said, Flow is a great app. You can use the health app on the Apple. There's so many other good ones. Fertility Awareness Method. Let me pull up the App Store. And the really cool part too is you can input other things in here. So let me use the Apple one because that's easy. So with the Apple one, you can input so many different things. You can even do this right from the comfort of your watch because I have the Apple Watch. I don't track on here, but you can put in your period. You can put in your symptoms. So you can put in acne, abdominal cramps, appetite changes, breast pain, constipation. I mean, a slew of symptoms, which this is incredibly helpful, especially if you're working with a practitioner like myself, so that you don't have to remember all these things when we chat. You can be like, oh, I had this, this, and this. This is the day that I had it. This is the day of my period that I was on, or this is the day of my cycle. It's incredibly. You can put in if you were sexually active, which that also can be helpful whether you're interested in family planning or natural birth control. You can put in ovulation test kits, which you have heard me talk about ovulation kits. If you've ran a Dutch test with me, that's how if you don't track your cycle, that's how we would confirm that you ovulate, because when you do run a Dutch test, you run it 5 to 7 days after ovulation. You can put in your basal body temperature, which is very cool. So you can just get a thermometer, put it in this app, and then it will naturally track and do those trends for you so that you can see it. You just have to do the work every morning and chart it. I mean, if you miss one morning here or there, like there's an instance where sometimes my watch dies or I forget to throw it on. I'd say for the most part, I really try to track at least 85 to 90% of my cycle, just because I know that that's how it's being most accurate. You can track cervical mucus in here, so whether it's creamy, dry, egg white, sticky, watery. Remember, you're more fertile when you're noticing more of that egg white type fluid. We're going to notice less cervical mucus towards the second half of our cycle, especially when we're getting close to our period. That's when we have like the least amount of cervical mucus. But in general, if you're kind of looking to kind of connect the dots in terms of like where that fertile window is for you, egg white consistency and mucus, a slight bump in temp, maybe a bump in heart rate. If you do track respiratory rate, there would be a slight bump in that too. And then kind of keep tracking those numbers for those days, and then see if your trends after those 4 to 5 days, that fifth day would be ovulation. Do those trends continue upwards? Because if they do, you're releasing progesterone, which we really only release progesterone kind of once that egg is made or once that egg is released. And so once the egg is released, if your temps continue to go up, it's a pretty good sign that you had ovulated. So I know that it's kind of tricky. I know that this is stuff that we honestly should have been taught in health school. We should have been taught in health class. This is what we should have been taught, is like what is going on with our cycle, but instead we're taught, I don't know, just about STDs and all like the stuff that makes everyone uncomfortable, which I know that's necessary. But I think for women, we should understand that we can't get pregnant all month long. We should embrace the different parts of our cycle because they're incredibly unique. So if you haven't listened to the episode with Dr. Stephanie Estima, it was amazing. Sorry, my cat just was trying to jump up on the thing behind me. Dr. Stephanie Estima, we talked about the different cycles of our cycle, the different parts of our cycle, and how to eat for them, how to move for them, how to honor our body during each. So that's very interesting. Let's see, what else? What else did I want to share about that? But yeah, natural fertility tracking or natural family planning or natural birth control is definitely an option. I think that there probably is a much larger margin of error with it because like you have to be diligent about it. You have to be tracking your cervical mucus. You have to be tracking your temperatures. You have to kind of know what your body is. But if you are kind of playing it safe and using protection methods or just abstaining from it during your fertile window, I think that that's a good sign, and that's definitely kind of moving in the right direction. And before I use temperature methods and things like that, that's kind of just what I would do because I just didn't know any better. But I think it's more just about empowerment instead of like being so afraid, like, oh my God, what would I do if this, instead of having like that, oh my God, I don't know anything about my cycle, I'm doomed, what am I going to do because I'm not on birth control, I'm going to get pregnant. If that's not what you want, you have a lot of options, and I think truly understanding your body is really, really, really important. And I think that whether you want to care if you're ovulating or not, or even if you're not in a relationship, this is still something that if you are trying to see if you have good markers of health, this is a good way to do it. And so because of that, this is what I recommend. Like I said, I use the Ava band. I believe the Aura ring also kind of tracks this. I'm not familiar with the Aura ring. Honestly, I just don't wear it because I don't want to lift in a ring. I don't even lift in my wedding ring, so I wouldn't lift with an Aura ring. So that's why I use the Whoop. And actually, the Whoop 4.0 is going to be tracking basal body temperature. They already track respiratory rate. They already track heart rate. And it's really actually crazy what I can see in the Whoop because I know when I'm in my luteal phase, which is the second part of your cycle. And it's so crazy how much more my metabolic rate is. I will go on the same walk with the dog, same intensity, and my metabolic rate is so much higher. My Apple Watch doesn't understand that, but the Whoop does. It's crazy. I'll be like, are you serious? Like, is that right? And then I feel it in terms of hunger-wise. I feel like I eat so much more. I'm eating so much more volume, so much more fiber, so much more nourishment. And yeah, and it's so crazy. So, it's crazy how really accurate this technology is, but you don't have to have the technology. You don't have to have these gadgets and watches. You can just do it with a thermometer and a free app on your phone. It will cost literally nothing to you except for maybe 2 minutes in the morning of your time, being diligent and tracking things in. But I hope that you guys found this interesting. Hope you found it enlightful. Hope you kind of try these things if you're not already, because I think that that's kind of the missing piece for people to go off of birth control, is that they're on birth control for the birth control prevention part of it, which is totally fine. That's great that we have these tools to do that. But I'm here telling you that we have other options if you see those fit for you. So let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, I dive deeper into like what's going on in our cycle, teaching you about your cycle in my online hormone course. Lots of fun stuff coming to the membership soon. Stay on the lookout for those t-shirt or those long sleeve shirts that will be coming out very soon in October, so we can kind of all rep them for Breast Cancer Awareness Month together. And thank you guys for being supporters of the show and supporters of me. It does not go underappreciated, that I can tell you, because I appreciate every message where you guys are sharing, like, I've been listening to your podcast and, I have changed this, and this in my life, and these are the things that have changed for me. I can't tell you how many messages I get of those, and it's just so cool to get those and know that you guys are making life-changing habits simply from this podcast, and which is so cool to me. That's exactly why I did this, because I want health like this to be accessible, and so everybody can do this. Everybody just needs to take the time to obviously listen to the podcast. Everybody can get the information on my Instagram for free. You just have to take the time to go back and read the posts and listen to the stories and check out the highlights. The information is there for people who want it. And then for people who obviously want to work more one-on-one, I obviously have those options too. I have a community, I have options for hopefully everywhere where you might feel in your journey that you can meet me, whether it's a free podcast, cool. I'm here for it. I love it. I love taking time out of my busy day to do this. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it, because I can't tell you how crazy my schedule has been. And for me, I enjoy carving time out to do this podcast every single week. So it means a lot that it means something to you guys too. So thank you guys for just being great. It means everything. So I hope that you guys have a great week. I hope you found this helpful. I'd love to know what questions you guys might have on this kind of stuff. And I will see you next week. Woo!